This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 195 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office, 5 episodes away from 200. Make sure you're following Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you prefer to listen. Or if you want to watch the show, subscribe on YouTube as well. And you can follow me personally at Ant Rivera86. Home sweet home for the New York Mets, or home sweep home, as the New York Mets finish off a 7-game homestand, taking care of business against the Cardinals, taking care of business against the division rival Philadelphia Phillies. And here to break it down with me, a good friend, Anthony Gallo, host on WFAN. It's like Anthony Squared here.
Yes.
Very excited to do this show with you today. Obviously, we've been a part of the, Uptown Sports and
Yes, sir.
Theo Al and Friends. Good friends with Theo Al as well. Al Cintron, who's hosting on WFAN and the overnights. So, Gallo, man, I'm kind of speechless to start this show, honestly, because the Mets took care of business against the St. Louis Cardinals, who, tend to give them trouble, whether they're good or bad. And the Philadelphia Phillies, who they have had their number since the end of the season.
Right. And, honestly, I thought today was going to be the day I would prepare for a loss, because you know what? And maybe it's the Met fan in me that I feel like everything's gone too well. And I was like, you know what? Today's going to be the loss. Diaz comes off the mound. They give up the run, and then somehow they get up there. And when Pete got up and they decided to pitch to him, which is ridiculous, I was like, things are different this year. And that's what it just feels like. And I know you mentioned the Cardinals, and it's funny you mentioned that. I know they're not as good as they are. They're usually, a pillar in the National League. And It just felt like even beating them in that 4-game series felt special. And this entire season feels special. There's no hangover from last year. They picked up basically where they left off last year, minus the Dodgers series. And things are exciting, and I feel like there's so much room to grow.
I said coming off of the 3-game series that they had lost to the Minnesota Twins, right? They finished 3-3 against Oakland, a bad team, as well as Minnesota, who's another bad team right now. And to finish 3-3, I know people could start freaking out. And my thing was, and I posted this on X, after that game was over, I said, the true test to me is how this Mets team bounces back after it was kind of a brutal loss. They did come back. They tied the game up at 3, and then they lost in extra innings in excruciating fashion. Every time they would have a loss last year, and it was one of those big losses, like, oh, man, this is it. Doomsday, season's over. Mendy found a way, Carlos Mendoza, that he was able to get this team to forget about that game, focus on the next one, and had them rolling for the next games to come. And to come out here and go 7-0, they're 12-1 at home on top of that. 4-game sets are extremely hard to sweep. And the fact that they did that against the Cardinals, number one, and then to do what they did to the Phillies, like I said, man, it's 1, speechless, 2, just super excited for what this team has. I don't like to get into standings so early in the season, but it keeps getting talked about. They have the best record in baseball right now for a reason. And you look at this team with the rotation that they have, unreal. 2/5 of them are on the IL right now. It's crazy what's going on with this team. And then Soto's not hitting on all cylinders.
He's not hitting.
Vientos hasn't been hitting on all cylinders. We're out of Alvy and McNeil right now. This has been a whirlwind to start the season.
If you would have told me that Griffin Canning and Tyler McGill were going to carry us at points in the season, I would have told you you're crazy, but that you nailed it. They have 2 guys really hitting in their lineup. I guess 3 if you want to count Luis Torrens. And they just got something. They're starting to get something at a Baty. We really don't know if Vientos is back. He looked good, then he got hurt, and they sat out the game. Soto I don't think Soto's been as bad as everyone made it out to be, but he hasn't been the $700 million guy we signed up for. And they are still rocking and rolling. And I think it's fair to look at the standings not because we think this is going to be easy the whole season, but to look at where they started last year, how they ended, and they've picked up right from there. Even when they stunk last year, the one thing this team has done is never given up. Like, we could go back to the 0-5 start last year, and I don't want to go too much on last year, and they've always had that fight, but now they've continued to play better. They have that fight, and they're missing key pieces. They're missing 4 key players, essentially, with Montas, Alvarez, McNeil, Manaea, and they're essentially missing Soto at this point. They haven't got much of the Vientos, and outside of Alonso, no one's hit from start to finish to this point. They have the best pitching staff in the league, and I think the pitching staff will come down, but I think the lineup is going to take off, and that's the mark of like a great team, and we're going to get guys back. It feels exciting. It feels like 2006 between the crowds at City, between the way the team is starting, where you're getting contributions from different guys every night, and, you know, Alonso obviously being consistent, Lindor starting to take off, but it's just exciting, and I feel like this is the mark of like what we expected, but now we're finally starting to realize it.
Yeah, last year, the 2024 season, this team, you mentioned, struggled right out the gate going 0-5, had
Horrible.
that brutal May. That usually ends up being in June, but this time it happened in May for this team.
Right.
And they navigated their way and turned the season around. Last year, as we all thought, right, it was supposed to be that learning phase. We're going to learn about this team, what they're made of.
Evaluation.
I think, evaluation. I think that the players were learning about themselves and learning about being a team and the culture and the aura and all that stuff. To now we're come to the point where they kind of know who they are, and they know that they can come back, and they know that they can win these games, and they know that they can bounce back after a tough loss. It is a totally different vibe that's going on in that clubhouse right now.
And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I was one of these fans that not just Iglesias, but when JD Martinez leaving too, I felt like maybe things would be different in the clubhouse, but clearly I undersold Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso, guys who have been here, their ability to keep the clubhouse loose together. Sean Manaea, a guy I think that's underrated as a clubhouse leader, and they've really taken Jesse Winker, another guy I think kind of keeps the clubhouse loose. They've really gone forward. They've gotten, and even the guys who have struggled, they've gotten contributions from. And I think that's just a mentality that starts with the manager. I think it starts with Lindor, obviously, and Alonso, but it starts with the manager. And I think it's something that I was afraid would hurt them in the sense that they'd be super talented, but they'd have a weak mentality, or they wouldn't look like they'd having as much fun. They look like they're having a blast. They're never at any game. Opening day, they looked lifeless, but still came down to the last at bat. I know Soto struck out, but like, you go to that game and it's a perfect encapsulation of what they've been the last year and a half. And it's exciting. I really feel like I've never seen a Mets team that they could be down 4 runs and I'm like, they're not out of it. They're down 5 runs. Even in the Dodgers series, they were down like 6 runs. And I'm like, you know what? I think they're going to come back. I have a good feeling about this. And they feed off of that. I think 2022, when they went into that playoff series, I know myself, no one had faith in them. And I think they felt that. I think it's the complete opposite now. Citi Field's rocking. 3 years later, it's rocking every night. It hasn't felt like this since they've been in Citi Field. It feels like, again, 06, 07, where every night you get 30, 35,000, maybe a sellout. The crowd's into it. The players are reacting. And they're getting contributions from guys in the pitching staff I never thought they would. They get contributions night in and night out from their two big guys in Lindor and Alonso. But today, Marte, he's one of my guys, but he's been terrible this year, comes up with a big hit. Beatty, who we're all ready, and now they have a tough decision to make. We're all ready to see this guy go back to the minors. He hits a big home run. So it's exciting. And I think that's also another thing, that these guys want to be here. So the guys that are on the fringe are trying their hardest to stay here. You know, I always mispronounce his name. Sanger, is that the backup catcher's name?
Aiden Sanger, yep.
He even at times, you know, is contributed. So it's exciting, and they have to just, you know, stay to it. And if the fan base is believing in them all year, I think it's going to be, when they're playing at home, they're never going to be out. And I think they're going to really thrive in that environment.
Well, let's get into the fan base, because they really showed up and showed out during this homestand here. You'd mentioned the fact that, you know, what this team has come together to become the culture that has been built with this whole organization from top to bottom, what Steve Cohen and Alex Cohen have done in the background to take care of the players, to take care of their families, the contracts that have been given out, especially Soto and how they got him here. One of the big things of attracting players to New York is kind of the fan base, right? If the fan base doesn't take to these players, they don't want to really play here. And
Right.
we've seen it. We've seen it so many times. Players get booed and teams on the road see this and don't want to come here. You really need strong personalities. And that's why I love Jesse Winker so much and why he
100%.
fits in, because he feeds into that mentality, whether you like him or whether you don't. And he's just such a perfect fit here. But the fan base, this past 7 games, and even to start the season, you compare that to years past. Obviously, we all seen the video, right? When you look back on the 2024 season, the first thing you talk about is what Gary Cohen mentions, this is rock bottom, right? And nobody's in the stands. And, for most of the season, even when they were playing well, all the way up to probably the final week of the season, that final homestand, that was the last game I went to, was the Saturday game against the Phillies. That was probably the most raucous crowd that I've been a part of since, I want to say, like you mentioned, 2006, because I was at Jacob deGrom's last game and it wasn't even packed. The place wasn't, they were so afraid that this team was going to lose that the stadium was not packed at all.
Well, if you remember, they went into last September, and I think I forget what series it was, but I'm pretty sure Cohen was complaining that, like, where are the fans? And it's tough. I always hate to like get on fans because between the economy and just it's expensive to go to a ball game, but it's different this year. And I remember in 2022, leading up to the final 2 weeks of the season, where the fan base kind of died out, where it felt like every homestand it was packed. And people were there. I remember I went to the game when Nimmo robbed the homer against the Dodgers. I was at the DeGrom game when they won that 5-game series against the Braves in late July. And it was crazy. And last year, every game I went to, and this is not to knock the fan base, and I tend to be on the fans a lot, it was dead most of the time. I went with BT, Sal, and Hoff from WFAN. We went to a game last year, and the crowd wasn't really into it. And I was at opening day. I haven't been able to get to any other games. I was at opening day. The crowd was clearly into it. I went to opening day last year, and obviously terrible game, but it was dead. This year, there was a buzz, and everyone's into it. Lindor steps up. Everyone sings the song. I think Met fans have really galvanized around Pete Alonso. Me being a guy who has been hard on him, I think a lot of the fans that weren't have really galvanized around him, and they're thriving off of it. You mentioned Jesse Winker, and you talk about guys who want to play here. I wanted Jesse Winker to be a Met since he caught that ball and waved at the fans, because I was like, that's a guy who will thrive in this environment. I think this is a bad example, but the mentality that Javi Baez had, where it was like, F you, I'm going to thrive. He did play well. That's a terrible part of the Mets season, but he did play well. Those kind of guys thrive here. So Jesse Winker will thrive here. I think Juan Soto is going to thrive here. He's off to a slow start. It is April. If we're talking late May, early June, and he's not hitting, I will start to worry. But these guys, as much as the negativity can hurt someone, I definitely think when the fans are behind you, and you saw them talk about it a little bit with the, Soto getting the round of applause, these guys will thrive off of that. And I think that's what's happening right now. Pete Alonso, last year the team was rocking and everyone was into it. He was still getting booed a little bit. Fans were getting on him. I was killing Pete every chance I got. And it's just nice to be back to also appreciating him. But as a whole, the fan base appreciating the team. And you mentioned the Cohens. They've done so much to make players want to be here. But the one underrated thing that I always say about Cohen is the game day experience is better. Like, I know that a lot of that, we're diehard baseball fans. You could put a dirt patch out there and foldable seats. I'm going to go to the stadium. But it is nice the way that he puts an effort into not just the team, but the fan base. Alex Cohen interacted so much and was so friendly with the fan base that she had to take a step back. And that, yes, we could find a negative in that, but I see the positive in she was really trying to be create a community. And that's what it feels like. And we go back to 06 and how going to the park was exciting. 07, even with the collapses, before the collapses, it was still exciting. There was that community. We're all singing, we're all chanting, and that's what it feels like now.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the fact that what they do is that they make sure that every moment of the game, in between innings, where they have the Queen's crew dancing, or they have the five boroughs races, there's
Yeah.
always something going on. And there's something for everybody at the stadium. Even
Mhm.
if you're not sitting there watching the game and you're going to eat. I mean, they have the best food. It was announced that
Oh,
they did three-peat for food.
it's
Uh,
untouched.
yeah. So they have been doing everything they can, and I think that this past spring, when Steve Cohen had his first a presser, where he kind of kind of called out the fans a little bit, and he trying to figure out a way to get more fans into the stand.
Mhm.
We got Soto, we got to get the fans. It was a real call to arms, and I feel like the fans have stepped up to the plate and have been there to support this team. I mean, what was it, last Thursday? Thursdays are tough, right? Wednesdays are
Right.
tough to come out to. They're day games, right? The teams, it's a getaway day. It's
Yep.
hard. It's hard from, I want to say, April, May, and the beginning of June, when kids are still in school, to get out there and go to the games. And if you saw against the Phillies on Wednesday today, and if you saw last Thursday against the Cardinals, the place was packed. The crowds were great, and the players, Mendoza, even David Stearns, have all been talking about this during the press conference of how and what it means to them to have the fans have their back. Soto was even surprised by the reactions that he was getting.
Yeah.
And you
I'm
mentioned,
sure he heard that Met fans were
of
brutal.
course,
New
of
York
course.
sports fans are going to turn on you quick if you fail. And for him to get that, he's probably like, this is not what was advertised. This is better.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure when he had a little slump with the Yankees last season, I'm pretty sure he felt it then. And obviously, when he goes there, he's gonna feel it when they have the Subway
Right.
Series. But when you look at Soto too, like you mentioned, if he's still struggling in June and July, you just gotta start worrying about it. And like I tend to agree with that. Here in April, I mean, this
I'm not
guy's
worried
got a
about
resume. I mean, we just did this last year
it. Yeah.
with Francisco Lindor.
Well, and to be fair, Met fans were doing it with Lindor again to start the season,
Yeah.
where I think that, Jorge Posada, a guy I always think of, notorious slow starter. And Yankee fans, again, it could just be a symptom of being a New York sports fan. Yankee fans would get on him every year. And as an outsider, I'd be like, I don't get what they're expecting. Obviously, Lindor turned it around very quickly this year. But with Soto, I'm not saying he has a track record of being a slow starter, but the guy is a generational talent. And he's going to, I think I am still an average guy, but I do think people get so hung up on the average that he's going to have a high OPS. He's going to have a high on base percentage. He's going to hit 35 homers. He's going to get close to 100 RBIs. He's sitting in a weird spot where a lot of times Lindor may already have driven himself in with a home run. So I'm not really worried about that stuff. Today, he made winning plays.
Yeah.
In the Minnesota series, he had a couple of homers. Like, all I'm looking for is he contributing to winning. And then, because now I don't care about the money. It's not my money. Yes, if he was awful, he'll get the Jason Bay treatment. But he's got to do that for 2-3 years before I completely turn on this guy. We got 15 years with him. You better start to get relax a little bit. Same thing with Lindor last year. I'd say to Met fans, I never was worried about Lindor. But it's just like, this guy's going to be here for a long time. You can't give up on them early. We did it to Beltran, and then he was possibly the best position player we've ever had. And I think that it's exciting. And the other thing I want to say too is, we talk about all the gimmicks. I love all the fun stuff. We are not the Yankees, and the Yankees do gimmicks too. We're not the Yankees. We're Met fans. We're colorful. It's Queens. It is the most diverse place on the world. And I think between innings, there's something for everybody on the team. You look at what the team represents with their makeup, how international they are, how different even the American guys are, and how at the stadium it feels like everyone's represented in some way, and it bleeds into that culture that we've been missing. The Wilpons kind of stripped us of that for a long time, and it's awesome to be at the ballpark and feel the energy, to feel the camaraderie, and to see the team reacting and acting the same way. And they've started to show up, and I have no problem with Cohen saying what he said early in this or late in the offseason, where he's like, listen, like, I'm spending, like, you guys have to show up. And he's a businessman, and I get that. Like, if you looked at that payroll disparity where the Mets were spending 85% of their payroll, it makes me feel good. But also, I'm like, I understand that's not sustainable for him. Like, the Mets were the only team in baseball the last 2 years to not make money. That's not because they're not successful. It's because he's spending so much on the ballpark, on infrastructure, on scouting and analytics, development, and the payroll that it's time that if he took a step back, I'm not going to freak out. But now we don't have to worry about that because the fans are showing up. The team showed up. I think they had 35,000 today, which is crazy. On a Wednesday in April, day game. And the day before, I know it doesn't matter too much. It's the day before the NFL draft. Like, there was a lot of things that you could count on. The Knicks are in the playoffs. Monday night, they had 35,000, I think 37,000 on a night that the Knicks played a playoff game. Like, so you couldn't say that hurt them. They had a huge crowd, which it's just awesome. Like, last year at this point, we had a bad team. The crowd wasn't showing up. And there were multiple reasons why they didn't have to show up outside of just the team being bad. And now there's multiple reasons for them not to show up, and they're showing up.
Yeah, it's just great to see the fans interact. The players are interacting. It's just the whole vibe and the whole aura around this team has been fantastic, and the reason why they are sitting around 18-7 right now to start the year, and the best record in baseball. And like I said, I don't get too crazy because it's April, but you want to get off to a good start, right? Like, you don't want the start that you had last year where you have to back in on percentage points to get into the postseason. You'll get in any way you can, but you don't want to do that every year. You don't want to do that every year.
The way they could have won the division last year if they had played 5 games better, 6 games, whatever it was, like the way that they had to claw back into not just a wild card race, but then at one point we were like, oh, the division's not out of hand yet. And you can't win a division in April. You could surely lose it in April.
Absolutely. And a big reason for their turnaround last season was the little switch that we didn't know that was needed, was putting Francisco Lindor in the leadoff spot here to start April last year. Lindor batted 197. We're talking about batting average. Here we go. 197 he batted in April. Has 639 OPS. This season, to start the year, 309 batting average. He's really picked it up, especially in these last 7 games. 5 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's got 2 stolen bases and a 869 OPS. He's been everything you've wanted him to be and more to start the year. And it's great that he's gotten off to a good start, carrying over kind of the good vibes that he had that second half of the season where he really was an MVP type player. If he didn't get hurt towards the end of the season, hurt his back, there probably would have been at least a slight more of a discussion.
More of an argument.
Yeah, more of an argument. I know Ohtani was going to win it anyway, but there would have been a little bit more discussion. We'll see.
Also, he got disrespected in the Gold Glove conversation.
All-Star game, everything.
Because I think the fact that he was never winning Gold Glove, Dansby Swanson's amazing, but I do think that showed you how much he's overlooked as a defender. And statistically, it doesn't lie. Like, outside of Dansby Swanson, no one puts up the numbers he does at shortstop.
Yeah, he has been one of the, you got to say, top 3 shortstops in the league right now. I mean, you even look across to the Phillies right now, and they are very upset with Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Remember, all the talk was, why did we sign Lindor? All these free agents. Trey Turner's going to be a free agent.
I hated it.
Corey Seager's going to be a free agent. And now they can't stand Trey Turner, and they have him for a long extended time.
There's one guy that I put in the conversation with Lindor, and maybe I'm disrespecting some people. It's Bobby Witt Jr. I think Ellie De La Cruz eventually will probably be a guy I put there, but I need to see it a couple more years. It's Bobby Witt Jr. And the reason why I'm going to say it to this day, that Lindor is the best at his position, plays Gold Glove defense, runs the bases. He does all the 5 tools, and he does the 6th tool, which he has cojones, and he hits in the clutch. He's done that since he was in Cleveland. He did it, in that World Series run. He had 2 of their biggest hits, the grand slam against the Yankees in I think it was the NLDS.
Yeah.
And I forgot what the other one was. He consistently has big hit after big hit. He's one of the most clutch players in the sport, and he just does everything. Even when he's not hitting, the Saturday game against the Cardinals, I forget what he did at the plate, but AJ Minter, bases loaded. That ball is hit to the right side of second base. The Acuna's position too far away to get to it. He somehow makes the play to his left, spins, gets the out, and it was like a perfect encapsulation of how much this guy affects every game. And there's very few guys in the league that do that. I honestly think it's hilarious to say this. Him and his former running mate in Cleveland are the two most disrespected guys in baseball, him and Jose Ramirez. And Lindor does it year in and year out. His own fan base kind of hurts him too because they're so hard on him. We've kind of obviously gotten away from that. But last year they were so hard on him, and I think that also contributed to the lack of MVP hype around him.
Yeah, you can't even forget just the leadership qualities that he provides to this team. There's always that talk about, is he going to be the next captain? Should they name him captain? And, what he has done, you see him, go to the mound, check on the pitchers. We've seen so many plays as well. And, I like to think of him kind of being that guy who, turned Mark Vientos around defensively too. Because all the talk was, this guy's going to be DH. Man, he's not going to be able to play defense. This guy plays good third base.
Yeah. I mean, he's been, I got to be honest, him and Alonso I've been hard on. They're better defenders than I've given them credit. I'm not even going to say Met fans. I'll start myself. But Lindor's a big reason for that. I think that he's always tried to be a leader. He is hard on his teammates. I think that is actually a thing that goes on. I don't think the rat and raccoon thing happened just because he was being soft with Jeff McNeil. He was a new guy. He told him what was up. And I think we've seen it. We've seen him go up the pitchers. It's one of my favorite things he does. And he's just like lock in. He did it to Diaz against the Phillies in the NLDS. He went up to him and he's like, it's like lock in. Like, come on. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. And I think he leads, one, by example, and two, he will hold his teammates accountable. He holds himself accountable. I mean, I think he's very hard on himself. And I think the Vientos, I think it was a little overblown, but Vientos not hustling. I think, we heard Mendoza talk to him, but Lindor talked to him too. And that's what you need.
And he has really kind of, I want to say, awakened a little bit. Swaggy V awakens a little bit offensively here. The big thing for me was how he would come back, after that little groin injury that he had over the weekend.
His best 3-game stretch of the season too.
It has been. I mean, over the past 7 games, he's batting .269, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and has an .873 OPS. The power is starting to come. He's starting to get some big hits here, and he is just the guy you need to get this lineup to lengthen a little bit, because we saw how bad the back end of the lineup was without Soto hitting either. It was basically, like you said, it was Lindor and it was Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso has kind of been that, MVP type player right now, that guy that we signed for the big contract, who's probably going to look for another big contract when it comes to the offseason, but he's got himself in MVP talks early on in the season. Even Brandon Nimmo hasn't been hitting. So it's nice to see Mark Vientos start to come around here a little bit.
I think that the key to this Mets season is, you just named the 2 guys. Not the key to the season, but the key to this next, patch of games is to get Nimmo and Vientos going. And I haven't been as worried about Vientos because even leading up to that series against the Cardinals, it felt like his at-bats were better. It felt like his approach was better. You never know with Nimmo because his approach never changes. I do think he's been a little aggressive where it's odd to see. But Vientos has played much better. He's playing great defense. And even the strikeout in the 10th, I felt like his approach was there. Like he just got beat on a good pitch. And I think that is a good sign of where he's come from. I was so nervous, like you said, that he got hurt and he was going to instantly go back into a slump. That day off, like it's the worst thing that can happen. I always say the guy getting hurt or having an off day when you're red hot, it's like the worst thing that can happen to a guy that's slumping.
Yeah, and he's really just come along here. And not only him, but Luisangel Acuna, Brett Baty, they're starting to heat up. Last 7 games for Acuna and Baty, both batting .333. Acuna has an .842 OPS. Baty has over 1 OPS. He's got a homer. We saw a big bomb that he just hit off of Zach Wheeler. 3 RBIs. He's got 3 walks. These 2 guys were crucial to the beginning of the season because it looked like David Stearns was ready to give the keys to the kids. They
Mhm.
didn't re-sign Jose Iglesias. The thought was that, was it Nick Madrigal? I already forgot.
Yeah, and he
He
got
was on
hurt
this
in
team.
spring training.
Got hurt in the first game of spring training, out for the season. So now those two guys are out, and the kids are in Acuna and Baty. We already knew that Vientos was going to be third base. They weren't taking that away from him. Baty had a great spring, but got off to a rough start. Not even Acuna had gotten off to a rough start, but his at-bats looked a little bit better.
Oh, the
when it
hater at
came-
bat is a perfect example of it. He just
Yeah.
looked more prepared for the moment.
Yeah. His at-bats were better, and then you start seeing him pick up and get on base and steal bases, and this whole homestand, he's been a part of a lot of big runs that have been scored. So to have him at the bottom of the lineup to then score from either Lindor or Alonso, even Soto with a couple of big hits, both of these two guys have been crucial, and it's a big time for them because we are awaiting the return of Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil. What do you think of what we've seen in the last week from Luis Angel Acuna as well as Brett Baty?
I know we've talked about this when you were on T.O. Allen Friends. I mean, Acuna's one of my favorite players on the team. I tend to be more into the speedy guys that are great defenders. They both played well. I think that Baty has had a tough job because he's clearly, I would say, the odd man out. Right now they got lucky because there's a chance that neither of them are getting sent down. It'll probably be the catcher and Sanger, and then why am I drawing a blank? The center fielder played left field today.
Azekar?
Yeah, I'm assuming those are the two guys they're going to send down because they took reps with McNeil in center field. Acuna can play center field. It's not like they're lacking outfield depth because their two DHs can play the outfield. Winker can play the outfield. If they had to put him in the outfield, and even at nights to give a Taylor or a Nimmo off, Nimmo can slot the center field.
Yeah.
I think that I trust Stearns is going to make the right decision, and it's a good thing because I want Acuna to stay up. I think he's the guy for the job, but Baty right now kind of doesn't deserve to get sent down. If they sent him down, I'm not going to lose my mind because they did it to Vientos after he had a walk-off homer last year. Why can't they do it to Baty? But it's a good problem to have. I would rather have this problem than have two guys slumping and saying, well, I think Acuna is the better player or I think Baty's the better player. Right now, I don't think we have to have that decision. They're both exciting. And as Met fans, and I'll throw Yankee fans in this too, we always want the young guys to play. They struggle, and we immediately want to get rid of them. No one else in baseball operates like that. And all these teams, whether it's the Dodgers, the Tampa Bay Rays to a lesser extent, these teams that are consistently fighting for playoff spots. I'm not going to say great, but are fighting for playoff spots. The Padres, they always have guys coming up in the system. The Houston Astros, they always have guys coming up in the system, and they don't have to be stars. Why can't, for example, Volpe's going through it right now. Volpe's probably not a superstar. Why can't these guys just be good role players? If Brett Baty doesn't turn into this elite talent, or Francisco Alvarez doesn't turn into this elite talent that we thought he was, if they're just really good role players, that's also okay. And it's nice to see these two playing. I want to trust the young guys. I'm not a McNeil guy. I'm excited to have him coming back. If the team was struggling, I'd be pissed because I would take all my anger out on him. I'm not a McNeil guy. And if you were asking me my personal opinion, I would have just gotten rid of him already and relied on these two going forward. But this is a great problem to have because now you bring in a vet, a utility guy to add to these two versatile players, and you don't really have to make the decision. You might not have to make that decision for a while because Jose Siri's not coming back, and there's no one currently on the 40-man roster that's a vet that they have to put in there for that. And there's no prospects that seem to be ready. Ronnie Mauricio's a far part away. Clifford, Gilbert, Jet Williams, these guys are all probably a little bit away from getting called up. So I think we're going to see Acuna and Baty here for a while.
And I think they could get enough playing time.
Yeah.
Even with McNeil, you can rotate the three. I assume Acuna will get a lot more of the playing time since his defense is really good, and he just has way better at bats right now. He gets on base, he scores runs, he steals bases as well.
Plays great defense.
It's great defense. I never thought that. Even if both of them were playing bad, I never thought that Acuna was going to be that one to be sent down because you don't have a backup shortstop right now.
They don't.
Without Jose Iglesias, there is none.
I've heard people say if McNeil's healthy, he's the backup shortstop. But we've seen that happen. And he for a guy who's actually a pretty good defender everywhere he plays, the one time I hated him playing a position was shortstop. He's a decent left fielder. He's not a Gold Glove, but he's a decent left fielder. He's a good third baseman, good second baseman. And I think with the DH position now, if you wanted to give Alonso a breather, you wanted to give Vientos a breather, you don't have to take him out of the lineup. You could put him at DH, and you could slot one of these guys at third. I actually think McNeil would be the guy I put at third and let Acuna play second when you're giving Vientos or Alonso a breather. And I take the shot with these guys at center field or left, whatever they want to do. I would take the shot because you want your best players in there, and you can make up for a bad defense with a great offense. And the way the pitching staff is, they throw more strikes. The strikeouts are up outside of like a Senga. Like they don't like, it's not a big bat the ball group. They actually are striking out more guys. Whereas last year, you had Manaya, you had Severino, specifically like a Severino or a Quintana, where they weren't striking guys out every night. I think you could get away with a average defender or a guy that maybe getting used to a position. And I think Acuna is a legit player in this league. You do not want to mess that up just because you want him to play and get 4 or 5 at-bats every day at AAA.
Yeah. And, we just talked about, McNeil's return and how that's going to situate. When we talk about Francisco Alvarez, and you talked about sending Hayden Sanger down. What if they decide to carry the 3 catchers? I know that's not like the typical way to go about things, but Sanger and Torrens in the backstop right now have really done a great job defending and pitch framing, handling this rotation, handling this bullpen. Both of those guys have done a great job, and maybe think about Francisco Alvarez coming back and maybe DHing. He is catching with that hand that got hurt, that left hand.
Right.
So maybe ease him in and figure out a way. I don't know.
So
now that the way that these guys are hitting with Baty, it's probably less of an option at this point.
Well, if Baty is the one that you're sending down, or if you're sending down one of them, it makes sense. And I don't hate it. Like, it would sting a little bit because I'm starting to believe in Baty again. Yeah. But I'm not going to hate it because it's not like Winker and Marte have earned to DH every single day, night in, night out. I want them in the lineup, but also if every, let's say Alvarez starts a game and then the next day is DHing instead of catching, and then, maybe they do it that way, I'd be totally fine with it. And Baty, I guess, is the guy. If they're not sending Sanger down, Baty's probably the one they're going to send down just because Acuna has shown more. He's been better with the bat to the ball. His approach is better, and he's a better fielder. He gives you more versatility, center, short, second, third. Whereas Baty, he's comfortable at third. He's okay at second. And he just started to hit, which does suck if they send him down. And I do feel bad for him, but that is a part of this journey.
And even thinking outside of the box with these guys, I had the question throughout today, and I even posted it on X, was, is it time to start having the conversation about Starling Marte? And then he goes and has the game-winning hit. So I guess I have to shut up for another week and a half about that. He has not been hitting. He doesn't play in the outfield as much right now.
He's the least versatile guy they have on the team.
Yeah. At some point, I know he got the game-winning hit today. I'm super happy I'm super happy for him, who has been struggling. But there might come a time, and David Stern, we've seen it in the past. David Stearns, as well as Steve Cohen, will not hesitate to get rid of someone with a big contract in the midst of a season if they're playing terribly.
It's fair. And I'm a big I have Marte's jersey. I'm a big Marte guy. He is, if you're really taking all account for it, he has been their worst hitter. Take away, Sanger, because he doesn't play enough, and he's not here to hit. He's here to be a legit major league defensive catcher.
Yeah, he's providing value elsewhere.
Now, do you think that Marte, because you heard a lot that Marte recruited Soto here, do you think Marte holds enough swing in the clubhouse that they're afraid to send him down? Or does he get a mystery injury and then he's on the IL for 10 days?
I wouldn't be shocked for a mystery injury.
Now,
I
here's
would not
something
be shocked about that. But the thing with Soto, like even after they signed Soto, there was that news that came out that, hey, we're trying to trade you. We're just letting you know.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was that
It was
conversation.
him and McNeil
even
were the
after,
two guys they tried to trade.
Yep.
Now, I honestly, again, I love Marte. I would not lose my mind if they somehow decided that he was the odd man out. I think after today, it's not going to be him, because how do you sell that to the vets on the team that this guy who's been here, he's played hurt, and you're going to DFA him, and there's no one else. It's if the Diaz injury, it was something I thought about before the reports, because I just saw something on Bleach Report that he's feeling a lot better. If the Diaz injury felt like something they need to put him on the IL, do they go an arm short in the bullpen just to not lose one of these guys? So maybe that's the route they would have went. But now, again, they have a tough decision to make Friday.
They do, and honestly, to me, it's really a good problem to have with all this roster that they have constructed and the depth that they have now on this team. And hopefully Edwin Diaz is okay. I think they said it was a cramp. He said it was a cramp. They did the stretching, they did the strength test, and everything seemed to have come out fine. So maybe he misses a day or two. You talk about depth. I mean, Ryan Stanton can close. AJ Minter can close. Look, Max Kranick can close if they needed him to. The only one I'd be worried about is Danny Young. And today, Danny Young struck out Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber.
And let me ask you this, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Is there a superstar that you fear less? And he's amazing. This has nothing to do with his overall play. Is there a guy that you fear less than Bryce Harper? It feels like he struggles every time in a big moment with the Mets. Like Diaz, I always said it with Diaz. Diaz could be the worst he's been. If Bryce Harper's in the box, he owns him. And then today with the Danny Young thing, I'm like, this guy doesn't hit at Citi Field, and he seems to always struggle against the Mets. And as far as the closer thing goes, you're right. And in this day and age, I want the best pitcher pitching in the biggest moment. So it's not even big on who the closer is. Brosbon's been so good. Kranick's been so good. Stanek's been so good. AJ Minter has felt like the shakiest guy after Diaz, and his numbers are great.
Yeah. It's nice that not only do they have versatility when it comes to the position players, but these bullpen arms, right? Like they can pitch multiple innings. They can close a game. This is something that was lacking in that postseason series that we really desperately needed against the Los Angeles Dodgers, where we had to use Edwin Diaz in the 6th inning for a game because nobody was reliable. And now you got all these arms in here, and it's just a great problem to have with all these players. When you mentioned Harper, and we'll wrap up with that. Yeah, man, I'm shocked every time he comes to bat, because he is definitely one of the top players in the league. He's 100%. Had a ton of clutch hits, especially in the postseason, to get the Phillies to the World Series. But every time he plays the Mets in Citi Field, the guy struggles all the time.
100%. I always go back to Diaz's first season. He was in his worst bout of and the Phillies are my least favorite team in the sport. He was having his worst bout of, he was struggling. The fan base turned on him. And there was a night, I think he struck out Schwarber, Harper, and whoever else was his batter. And it feels like his numbers against, I think Harper's 2 of 19 against him. It's 2 home runs, but he owns the guy. It's mostly strikeouts. And I think the other night was the perfect example. Harper looked like he was playing wiffle ball, swinging at a baseball. He swung through that thing so fast. I thought he hurt himself. This takes nothing away from how great he is. He's going to hit 500 homers. He's one of the best players of his generation. But his kryptonite seems to be the Mets, specifically at Citi Field, and he can hit Diaz.
My favorite is Edwin Diaz versus Schwarber. It's a strikeout every time. I love it.
Well, that slider is
wicked.
And I don't worry as much as the average fan about Diaz. I think that his stuff looks good. He just is a bit of a basket case at times. And I think that's just standard for, he's not the top closer in the league, but he's certainly not one of the worst. He's still one of the better guys. And I think just like last year, as the season goes, he's going to quietly turn back into the high strikeout guy. He does give up a lot of hits. It feels like when he's up against the 8-9 hitter, he sucks. But then everybody else, he's just dominant against.
Well, you could agree, too, that you'll know within probably the first 5 pitches which Edwin Diaz
Yes.
you're probably getting.
It was the night against, I think it was the A's. He walked the first batter, and I was like, oh, he didn't even come close to throwing a strike. And then gave up a hit, and then immediately strike out, and it was like a pop-up. And I'm like, just like against the Phillies, that first batter, you were like, oh, man, I don't know. And I was there. I was sitting there. I was with Al. I was like, I want this guy in the game. He's the only guy I trust. And he ended up coming up. He is such a confidence guy. And I didn't think he pitched bad today. He gave up a soft hit, and it was extra innings, and that's why the run scored. It wasn't like he had a terrible inning. So I've been encouraged what I saw recently, and I'm not as worried about it.
Gallo, it's been a lot of fun having you on the podcast today. Let everyone know what you got coming up, and hit up your social.
T.O. Allen Friends on the Uptown Sports YouTube page every Thursday, 8 p.m. You can always look out for me on the Fan. I'm not on this weekend. Hopefully, I'm back next weekend. As always, this is my Twitter, Pico Day _Gallo on X, and then my IG is Pico de Gallo 24, and I have a YouTube page. It's just officially Anthony Gallo's YouTube page. So not original, but yeah, you can always find me there.
Awesome. Just so great having you on. You can follow Subway to Shea, as I mentioned before, X, Instagram, TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally on X at AntRivera86. Subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you like the video and share as well. Make sure if you want to listen, you can do it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That wraps up Subway to Shea for this week. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much. And, I like to end the show always saying, let's go Mets.